In this video, we're going to show how to complete Exercise 5 Bookings Analysis. The first table or report we're going to build is this report. It shows the total room nights for a room type and for nationality. Now, I switched to the empty workbook first. So this is our empty workbook, and you'll see that there's no worksheet for exercise 5. That's because we're going to create it ourselves from scratch. The data that we're going to use is also in exercise 2 hotel data. And we're going to use a Excel feature called pivot tables. Now, before we do that, let me first insert a blank row here. Okay, I'll insert a blank row, and I'll tell you why in a bit. So let me just put this as a no fill. Okay, so I've inserted a blank row here. Now, if you'll notice, all the data we need to build that report is in this range. So I'm just going to highlight it for your reference. And this is a range. A range is a group of cells, and the upper left-hand corner of this range is A4, and the lower right-hand corner of this range is M95. The reason I put a empty row here is that I wanted to have a boundary between the first row of this table and the report title. So I just wanted to make sure there was an empty row between them. Now that we've established where the data for the report will come from, now we're going to build this report. We have room types here as the label of each row, and the nationality as the label on each column. And the figure that we are organizing according to room type and nationality is the total room nights. So I'm going to use pivot tables to build this report. And the first thing I do is I click on any cell that is in my range of data. Remember, we said earlier that the upper left-hand corner is A4 here, and the lower right-hand corner of the data is M95. So I can click anywhere in the data as long as I don't click on an empty cell which is outside of the table. Okay, so I don't click here, I don't click here, I don't click here, but I can click here, I can click here, as long as I'm within the table. So I've currently clicked on this cell, and the reason why you want to click in the data is because later on when you insert the pivot table, it will automatically locate your table array for you. So I'll do that now. So I've clicked on this cell, or you can click on any cell within the range. Then you start the pivot table wizard. So you click insert, pivot table. And now you'll see that because I clicked within the range, it was able to automatically locate the table that I want to analyze, which is A4 colon M95 on EX2 hotel data sheet. Now, my pivot table, I want to put it in a new worksheet, so I make sure new worksheet is selected, and I click OK. So now you'll see that a new sheet has been inserted, and later on this is going to become exercise 5. And over here on the right, I'm going to drag this out so you can see it more clearly. You'll see that there are a list of fields that show up here, and these are actually the list of fields in our exercise 2 hotel data. So now we just simply need to click and drag the field to the section of the pivot table where we want it to appear. Now remember, we need the room type to appear as the row label. So I'm going to look at room type, and I tick it. When I tick the box, room type automatically appears on the row label, which is where I want it to go. Next, I look for nationality, and I need nationality to be here on the columns. So if I just check nationality, it appears below the room type. And in fact, over here, you'll see that the pivot table report is being built as I tick the fields. But I don't want nationality to be below the room type. I want it to be on the columns. So from here, I can click on nationality and just drag it to columns. And now it appears in each column. Next, I need to show total room nights as the number that I'm organizing. So I click room nights here, I click room nights, and it automatically goes into the values area. And for each value, you can, if I right click here, you can summarize. Right now, it automatically added the room nights, and that's what I want. So I just keep it like that. But if in case you just wanted to count it, then you can switch to count this way. Or if you just wanted the average instead of the sum, you can switch to average. But I'm going to keep it as a sum. So there you have it. This is the first pivot table report for exercise 5. For the second pivot table, we want to show, once again, nationality as a label on each column. And over here, on each row, what we want to show is the booking pace. The booking pace is the number of days before arrival that the booking was made. And you'll see here that for the booking pace, we have a range. So how many bookings were made by Americans 10 to 59 days before arrival? How many bookings were made by Americans 60 to 109 days before arrival? And so on. So what we need here on the row label is booking pace. And we need nationality on the column label. And what we need here for the values is the number of bookings. Okay, so now I'm ready to build my second pivot table. So I go to exercise 2. Once again, I click on any cell within my range, insert, pivot table. It automatically finds my table here because I clicked within the range. And this time, my second pivot table, I want to put it in an existing worksheet. And the location is going to be exercise 5. So I click there, exercise 5, and I want to put the pivot table a little below this pivot table. So I'm probably going to put it, I could put it here or I could put it here. Okay, so now that I've found my location, I can click OK. And now this is my second pivot table. So we saw from the model answer that we need nationality on the columns. I'm going to show you another way to put nationality in the columns. Instead of checking it, I click the name and I drag it to columns. So now it appears in the columns. Now for the row labels. For the row labels, we need the booking pace. So I tick booking pace. Now, sometimes the pivot table wizard puts it in the wrong place. When I tick booking pace, it appeared in the values, but I really need it in the rows. So I can just drag it to the rows. So now I have the booking pace here. Now you'll see that if I simply move the booking pace to the row labels, it will show one row for each possible value of the booking pace. So I click on any of these booking pace values and I right click, and you'll see here group. So select that. And what we want to do is group them by 50. Now you'll see here that it starts at 10 and ends at 198. This is the minimum booking pace and this is the maximum booking pace. And Excel figured it out directly from our data set. So we didn't have to put this in ourselves. But the interval of the range, we set that to 50 ourselves here. You click OK. And now you'll see that it only shows the booking pace in groups of 50. And that also makes it easier for us to understand our data. Now finally, for the values, we simply want to count the bookings. So I'm going to look for the booking ID. When I tick it, it goes to the values, but it becomes a sum because the booking ID is numeric. But again, we don't want to add the booking ID because adding the booking ID is meaningless. What we really want to do is count it. So I'm going to right click, change to summarize, and switch to count. And now we have the number of bookings for this booking pace and for this nationality. Bookings by nationality, but this time on the row label we want the length of stay. That means how many nights did the guest stay, And for the length of stay, we want to group it in as 2 to 3 nights, 4 to 5 nights, and 6 to 8 nights. The values, we just want to count the bookings. So this is going to be my third pivot table. Once again, I build it from exercise 2 hotel data. I click anywhere in the range, insert, pivot table, existing worksheet. I go to exercise 5 bookings analysis and I click a few rows below my previous pivot table to indicate that this is where I want to insert it, and I click OK. So now my third pivot table, I select nationality, drag it to the columns, and we want the length of stay to go to the rows. So the minimum length of stay from our data is 2 and the maximum is 8. But what we really want to do, so I'm going to right click, is to group this by 2. Click OK. So now we have 2 to 3 nights, 4 to 5 nights, and 6 to 8 nights. And we just want to count the bookings. So we can actually select any field here. I'm going to do booking ID. And it goes into values. It adds it. I switch that to account. So there you have it. Now let's look at how to format this. I'm going to show you how to format the first pivot table, and you can do the rest yourselves. So pivot tables actually have a ready-made format. Oh, and you can find it in design, pivot table styles. So you can look for a style that you like. I will choose this style. Okay, and as I choose it, it's rapidly applied there. And if you look at the model answer, we show here total room nights. How can we do the same thing here when it shows sum of room nights? I'm simply going to click this and change this label to total room nights, which sounds better. And for a pivot table, what the column labels do here is it lets you filter. So let's say I just want to see bookings by Americans and British. I can untick the other nationalities that I'm not interested in. And I can focus on just comparing these two. When I'm done comparing, I can tick all of them again. And same thing here with the row label. With the row label, I can just choose to focus on the twin rooms, do my comparison, and when I'm done, I can select all again. So when you're done analyzing, it may be a good idea to hide these column labels and row labels drop-down boxes. So how to do that? We go to pivot table analyze, and up here you see the plus minus buttons. So we're going to click the plus minus buttons. It might be a good idea not to show these filter drop-down lists when you're done with them. To hide this column label and row label filter drop-down lists when you don't need them anymore, click on the pivot table to display this pivot analyze tab, and you'll see here a button called field headers in a group called show. Right now the field headers are showing, so I click it one time to switch it off, and now we don't see the drop down list for those row label and column label filters. Okay, so that's the first line of my report title. Now I'm gonna need 3 lines, so I will right click and insert one more row here. Now that we have our report titles, we can select each row and merge and center. We can increase the size. For report titles, we recommend at least 22 or 24. We'll say 22. We can make it boldface. We could put a background color. And change this text back to black. Okay, so here we have our pivot table, and we have also shown you how to add a report title here. So now you can go and format the other pivot tables on this exercise 5 bookings analysis sheet. We can also click the sheet name and drag it behind exercise 4 tour data so that it shows up in the proper order.